All right, it's 4:30, so,
We need five.
I hear people,
no, we need 4 for more.
Oh,
We have 4.
but they're
Is there 7
coming.
people on the board?
yeah, okay, right.
We hear voices.
Yeah, and creaking of the
Oh, wait.
floor.
There is Christine. Yay, Christine.
Hello. Just want to hear what's going on.
Mhm. There's Jan and
There's
Bruce.
Jan.
Oh, wow, we're way over
Six out of
now.
Huh?
I usually sit at the end.
All right, how are you?
Hi, okay, how are you?
Good.
Hi, Jan, how are you? Good, good, good.
Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Hi, Patty.
Welcome to the October 10th meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. We are recording this meeting, and I believe that Liz is also transcribing it with one of those fancy pants AI services. Is anyone else recording the meeting?
No.
Good. So just so you know, we're recording and transcribing. All right, on to the next thing. The first thing on our agenda is the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any comments or changes, or can we have a motion to approve?
You're gonna have a motion to approve from me.
And I'll second it.
All right. Bruce, motion, and second. We're gonna have to do a roll call because Liz is on Zoom. So Liz,
Aye.
aye.
Of course.
Jan, aye.
Mark, aye.
Pro guy.
Bruce, I.
All right. The minutes are taken care of. Next thing on our agenda is just a quick discussion on the seasonal communities designation for comments. Did anybody have any, I'm going to just open up my notes taker because there are no pens in the room, so I'm going to type. Does anyone have any suggestions on comments? Just an open discussion. Don't need to be recognized.
The comments I have are related to what I have learned in the time that I've been on this trust, largely from you, Patrick, because you know all these things about
Thank you.
stuff in the town and zoning and everything else. And particularly some of the responses that I received after the comments I made at our last meeting, which is, except for a very small number of things, like changes to the AMI, potential issues if a town has municipality has an RTE going up to 50% of the assessed value. But it seems to me that almost everything else that's in the draft regulations are things that we already have the ability to do in Stockbridge in terms of zoning and ADUs and tiny houses and so on and so forth. And so I don't know what we get from becoming a seasonal community designee.
Can I address that?
Yeah, I just opened it up.
So with traditional affordable housing trusts, there's three different, depending upon what it is. If it's Section 8, it's 30% of AMI. If it's voucher, it's 80% of AMI. So by taking that maximum number, which is around 60 grand for 65 grand for a single person, or up to 95,000 for family of 4, that's 100%. By being able to increase it by 250%, you open it up to the middle class. So that's one thing. The second,
We have no ability to do that outside of getting seasonal designation.
we absolutely do not. It's a hard no. You can't
Okay.
do that.
Well, then that's an important issue. That was what I
Yep.
gleaned from reviewing the regulations, the draft regulations.
Fair housing laws tightly regulate who you can preference. And this allows us to have the additional preference of municipal employees and artists. Now, there's been some discussion around there may be some other types of organizations or additional organizations where we might be able to do the municipal part alone. But when you look at both of those together, where we can basically do municipal and artists, you open up the opportunity to sort of maintain the cultural destinations we have, make it easier to fill the jobs. You know,
And is that also a hard something?
that is only allowable for seasonal communities,
Okay.
especially the artist part.
I meant to add that on.
I am
to-
certainly no expert in municipal trust. That is something that we're going to talk about later,
Okay.
but those are two relatively big things.
Yes, they are. I don't disagree.
And I think that Did somebody have a comment? All right, I'm sorry, I thought I heard something. I think that those might be two things worth, look at, the town doesn't have to do any of those things. It just gives our toolkit greater expansion.
Right.
So it lets us basically say if we were to do something down at Zabian's, for example, at the industrial park, where he wants to preference municipal, that would give us more options. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to put together that or whatever. And I think we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that because of some of the historical issues there. But I definitely, I think that it's the middle class that's getting,
Okay. Well, those are not unimportant things. Those were the two things that jumped out at me, the municipal artists and the AMI issue.
Yeah.
That seem to me things that we do not have the ability to address now. And I didn't know if there would be any opportunity to address them without getting seasonal community designation. And it sounds like the answer to that is no.
Yeah. And I was talking to an electrician who lives in town, at a Tango concert actually about a month ago. And I don't like to name people's names in the meetings, but he's somebody that it's one of those names we all know, famous name actually. And his son is set to inherit, he's my age, right around my age. And his son is set to inherit the business. And he said, Patrick, my son can't afford to live here. And that's exactly, I think, what we're talking about is how we got to keep those folks in town, or at least in the area, who can, so that, it's hard enough. I was talking to some guy from Pittsfield, actually, who was joking with me saying, yeah, we got a price list for North County, a price list for South County, and South County's way more. And it's not necessarily just because there's more wealth in South County. There kind of is, but some of us, I don't know who, but some of us maybe aren't as wealthy as others. And yet the issue, I think, is that you look at what a good job McCann has done, the vocational school in North Adams, at training people. And you've got more competition for things like some of the services that we need, for those types of services. And I think that, kind of, the vocational piece, the high school, training, EMT paramedic training, but also housing. These are all parts of the puzzle that maybe keep it great for the rest of us. All I do is crunch numbers all day and,
Yeah. It was an interesting article in the Eagle today related to the AMI issue and the donut hole that,
it was a little confusing, is what they're really saying was that, that we're getting a break, so I'm not sure AMI is fair or not. I'm not expert at that, but yeah, I did see that.
did you see it?
No,
Yeah.
I don't get to eat.
I don't either. I just get it.
I'll send you all, I'll copy and paste.
Oh, okay.
Wait, did I say that on the film? Film, that's how old I am.
And one of the people, I participate with the second homeowners group, and one of the people in the second homeowners group, Sandy Barron, basically excerpts things of interest from the Eagle and posts it to our listserv, and she sent that out today. It's a very interesting.
That's kind of,
Hi, Anita.
hi,
We didn't hear you. Did you have a comment?
I didn't realize I wasn't muted on your video actually.
Oh, okay.
So, thank you.
But it was talking about the fact of the differential between, northern county and southern county, and because of the disparities in wealth in some of the communities, that the AMI numbers are disproportionately weighted not necessarily in favor of Stockbridge and people that want to move into Stockbridge.
So I have a question for the group, and I frankly have no opinion on this. But this is the trade-off. All right. So the way that the regulations are written, to my understanding, is that when it comes up for a vote at town meeting, which I would expect to be either late this year or at town meeting in May, I'm hoping that we'll do a special town meeting, but that's going to be up to the select board. The planning board has to, and so Liz, prick up your ears. The planning board has to, in conjunction with that vote, have a recommendation on undersized lots. All right. Now, to clarify, if you build, in the regulations, if you build, once again, it's my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, so just, I apologize in advance if I get any of this wrong, but if you build on an undersized lot, it comes with a 30-year deed restriction. Okay? You can't, it turns out under Massachusetts law, it can't be a forever deed restriction. So it's a 30-year deed restriction for the only person you could sell it to is another full-time resident. So, that takes the universe of buyers for a financial house when if you ever want to sell it and greatly reduces it. But on the other hand, lets you build an undersized lot, which could save you some money. Now, the regulations are written in an interesting way. They let us sell how undersized, like in other words, is there a floor on the size of the undersized lot? So if we are in R2, which is 2 acres, you could set it at 1.8 acres, just a 10% decrease, or you could set it at half an acre. Now, because of the upside restriction, obviously it's going to be more attractive the smaller the lot, the undersized lot.
Right.
On the other hand, politically, the smaller the lot for the undersized lot, the harder it is to pass these little communities. And what I want to ask you, and we don't have to answer this today, is if this board wants to make a recommendation based on that trade-off, like what we want to get passed, whether or not we think that it'll be easier to pass at town meeting versus the smaller lot size, which would be better financially. If you're spending a lot less on land, it's way better than if you're not really saving anything on land.
So I have a question, having read it sounds to me that for undersized lots, it is a single family residence for attainable, people with attainable income is defined as 250% of AMI. So and that
Up to 250%.
up to 250.
Right.
Okay, so if you have a lot, let's say that's, if the planning board finds the undersized lots in a 2-acre zone as 1.8, let's say. Whether, and it doesn't say you can build multiple one house. So if you think about it that way, for 1.8 acres to build and
It's ridiculous. No one will take advantage of it.
I don't think there would be very many of them
Yeah.
because I haven't gone through the economics, but it doesn't sound like it's going to
No, I
work.
mean, basically,
on
this
that.
would work best if you had that 2 acres and you're able to subdivide it into 3 or 4 lots. And it was a half an acre, then all of a sudden you could build 4 tiny homes or 4 houses on a half-acre lot. We have lots, by the way, of neighborhoods right in Stockbridge with half-acre or smaller lots. Look at Church Street.
Exactly.
Look at Park Street. Look at Shamrock Street. I mean, there's lots and lots of them.
There are.
Yeah.
And if the undersized,
Beechwood and Mackinac
Yeah.
Shores.
So-
There are houses that are on
Yep.
less than,
Mackinac Heights, they're all, Mackinac Heights is a bunch of 1/4-acre lots, sure.
yeah.
so
But now it's zoned differently now, so you can't do that anymore there.
Right.
but I think there are areas where there's 1-acre zoning, isn't there?
Yeah, so we're blessed to have, sorry, yeah,
So-
well, we have 1 acre, I think we have the downtown. Then I think we have a half-acre around downtown, maybe, I'm not sure. I know we have 1 acre in the Furnace District, we have 2 acre and we have 4 acre. So we have a lot of lot sizes, if you look at the zoning map, which is right on the town website under assessors, there's a map that comes up
Right.
that tells you the various sizes. Yeah.
So what I was thinking was and even the 4-acre zoning areas,
Mhm.
an undersized lot at 3.5 or something is
It's not gonna help.
it's not
No,
gonna
no.
do very much. So in addition to kind of making a recommendation about the undersized lots, I think it might be helpful to talk about what are the if we're focusing on the areas that are 1 acre, 1.5 acre zones, whatever, and having the planning board define what an undersized lot there would be.
Mhm.
I mean, they could do it for all of the areas, but practically from an economic point of view, as we said, I don't think for the big acre pieces, it's really going to work to be able to build
Yeah.
attainable housing on those large lots.
But if you look at the 1930s original zoning for Stockbridge, I think it was, I've got it somewhere. I haven't studied it in a year, but they were really small. And sometime around in the 1980s, we imposed a zoning freeze effectively by superimposing on what the rules were. It started there was one in 59, another one in 66, and then by 1980, we kind of said, okay, even in these areas where like in Patty's in front of Mackinac Heights, where we had all these quarter-sized lots, the surrounding areas all became like R4, R2. So, you basically made it so that it was up to 16 times more land required to build more. So we kind of, and that wasn't necessarily a bad idea. It was a way to kind of keep, the pastures and the rural landscape, but
Yeah,
I definitely did that.
But
I just think that, having a discussion of an R2 and making it an undersized lot of 1.8 is a ludicrous discussion. It's not a meaningful reduction in the size of the lot that you're doing. I mean, if you're going to reduce an R2, then you need to reduce it meaningfully. If you're doing it because you want to propagate attainable housing for people, And I wonder if we shouldn't set a percentage of the existing
It
zone.
has to be that. And I believe it has to be across the whole town. So it is a percentage, and I don't believe it
I
is.
mean, like say that an undersized lot is 50% of the existing zoning.
Right.
So if it's an R2, it goes down to 1 acre.
Right.
If it's an R1, it goes down to half an acre.
Right. And the point I'm making is
You don't have to define each of these zones.
can't, though. I don't believe you can define the zones. I believe it's a percentage across all zones.
I don't think that's
The
clear.
same percentage across all zones?
That's my understanding, but
I didn't see that in the draft regulations.
they said, I think it says the planning board has to define.
Yeah, but it doesn't say they have to do it equally for every zoning
Okay.
area.
All right. Well, there's that. But the reason to do it, Bruce, is this. We could seed. There's some people in town who legitimately, that's a judgment call. There's some people in town whose opinion is that the bucolic rural nature of the town is maintained by large lot zoning. All right. So we could seed the large lot argument in order to get the ability to serve the middle class, municipal and artists. That's what we get if it passes. So the only reason I can get to not advocate for, let's say, half the size or a quarter size of the lots is because if we kind of, if we do that and and don't bring the town along with us, we risk losing the entire vote
Exactly.
where we get so much upside if we don't basically kind of stop housing down the opponent's throat. This way, we're just saying, we just want more options. We want to serve
Yeah.
people who make a little more. And we don't have to set it at 250%, by the way. That was a recommendation by the people from Nantucket. All right, they're the ones who said, no, AMI doesn't work for us. It basically is tripling for Nantucket. We don't have to say, you're making $250,000 a year, family of four, we're going to subsidize you. We don't have to say that at all. We can set it at 125% AMI. We have that flexibility. But if we want to serve people who make a little bit more for that missing middle, that donut hole, if you will, from the earlier conversation, then, and we want to basically say, municipal and artists are important to us, then maybe we don't want to start off with something that's so,
Yeah,
that would cause us to lose support.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
Well, the other thing that I noticed in the write-up of this is that if there is an undersized lot, it is for attainable housing or affordable.
mhm.
It is not for another big mansion,
All right.
that might,
Yeah.
and as you said, it carries that 30-year
Mhm.
requirement on it.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, look at the I don't have any, look at, some physician with a specialty practice with a working spouse, they want to live here, they're making $400,000 a year, they're not going to get a subsidy. But if they want to build an undersized lot, I'm all for it. I love having doctors and other professionals, business owners living in our community. I don't think that's bad. It goes back to the electrician example, I think they make 2 or 3 times what I make for sure. So I'm not sure there's a difference between what we would subsidize and what would be allowed. But once again, I go back to kind of would the physician want to build on a half an acre and have a 30-year tie-up to only be able to sell it to another full-time resident? I think that's unlikely personally, but yeah.
Well, I think we need to get clarity on the regulations, because the way I read it, the first condition on the undersized lots is that it's for an attainable house. So the physician would not be able to build on it.
Okay, well, a lot of physicians make
But we can.
quarters, so maybe.
I may have that
We set
wrong.
the AMI high enough. Yeah, I hear
I
what
may
you're
have
saying.
that wrong. So-
Yeah, that attainable thing kind of confused me a little. So we have 3 people on Zoom. We're 3 of the people and I'm sorry, what's your name again? Jim, I will lump you in if you are a housing expert or a municipal, but we have 3 people on Zoom who spend a lot of time in going to meetings, paying attention. Patty, you weighed in on some of the regulations that they're looking at in Truro, I seem to recall. Obviously Christine with BRPC, I have been really following these seasonal communities. Anita, you seem to be everywhere all the time. If any of you have any thoughts on seasonal communities, I would love to hear them. Hi, Patty, of course, just chime in.
Well, I'd actually like to understand what this benefit is that keeps being touted about artist preference, because there are communities across Massachusetts that already have programs in place to preference artists for housing. Boston, Salem, Somerville, Provincetown, they're all over the place. So I speak to Bruce, one of Bruce's comments about what is the point of the seasonal communities designation that we benefit from, and if the only 2 selling points are artist housing and municipal housing, and there are other mechanisms to achieve it, I just would question what is the specificity.
So what is the mechanism in like a Provincetown or, Boston has a lot of home rule petitions that they got through the legislature. So I tend to exempt them because they have their own set of rules. What specifically are the mechanisms to preference artist housing? Because it is explicitly allowed in the seasonal communities designation for smaller municipalities like ours. And I don't know if we did a housing lottery at like Lenox and Brushwood, they are not able to preference artists. The preference is based for the fair housing laws. But I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying I'd be curious to know what those mechanisms or statutes in state law are that would allow subsidized housing for those groups or for artists.
Well, I guess that's part of the homework, right? Because those housing mechanisms exist in those towns. So what is the state law that already exists for those towns to take advantage of it? So I'm not an expert. I'm not standing here up, speaking before you and saying, I know everything about this mechanism. I know for a fact that those housing units exist in those sorts of towns, and that those towns often issue something called an artist certificate. There are live work requirements. There's you have to present a portfolio of work, and you have to prove that you've been a working artist for X number of years. It's the usual, you have to show that you're really meeting the criteria. So I just think that it's part of the analysis. If you want to say that the seasonal communities designation is specifically beneficial because of, then I would hope that you would have some familiarity with existing models to know how it differs from existing models. So that I just think widen the scope, because people are going to bring up people are going to be for or against seasonal communities. So you might as well, really find that it's bulletproof. What can't you do that this seasonal communities allows you to do,
So Liz, did you get the list of municipalities that Patty just mentioned?
Do I have them? No.
No, it's going to be in your AI.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's all there. It's all there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. When you talk about artists, are you talking about just artists, or are you talking about musicians? Are you talking about writers? Are those included?
Oh, I would assume it's in the definition of an artist, it's
So
I could think of a few I'd want to exclude, but more individual styles rather than individual people.
but I'm thinking, to answer Patty's question, I think we do have a real need for artists homes here. We have, musicians that come here that, they have nowhere to go. They play here, but they have nowhere to go. And maybe it would address that somehow.
Yeah. So
there is,
let's not do the analysis now. What I would like is a volunteer from the board, maybe to, and Patty, if I don't know if you have any interest in helping us look into this, but I would like a stronger education as to what other options there are for artist housing. Mostly I was just thinking of like, if we can kind of make it a little easier. I think it's the vibe of Stockbridge is, the arts and, I think it'd be great. But if there's other ways to do it, to Patty's point, let's understand what those are and come back at the next meeting perhaps with just a quick overview of what other municipalities are doing. Patty gave us some examples of municipalities to look at, and I think we should do that. And Bruce, if you want to comment on now, you're of course.
well, I'm just looking it up, and it says that, yes, Massachusetts facilitates housing for artists through various means, primarily through local zoning laws that create artist live workspaces and city level programs, Boston Artist Housing Certification. There are cities like Arlington and Lowell have incorporated specific zoning provisions that allow for buildings to be used for both living and creating art. And then you can create an artist overlay district where developers can receive incentives such as density bonuses for including artist live workspaces in their projects. So it already exists without needing to.
Okay, wait, hold on. It exists in zoning.
It exists
It does not exist in subsidies. We're in the business of subsidizing housing.
Yes.
So what this is saying, I mean, I think we need to confirm this. I don't know. This is, this is not my thing I'm bringing to the board. But if these are zoning.
It says that developers can receive incentives such as density bonuses. I would consider that potentially to be a subsidy.
Well, incentive.
But you're translated to.
Maybe means that they get a tax break to build the building or some other. There's a lot of types of incentives that are out there that have nothing to do with actually paying your rent, just saying.
My son and daughter-in-law live in Lowell and they live in an old mill building. And it's for low-income artists.
Right.
And they both have degrees in computer graphic arts.
Right.
And they're low income because my son is legally blind and can't work other than doing computer stuff that he can do. And, so they're, like Bruce said, Lowell is one of the towns that does have it in Massachusetts.
Right.
I don't know I know that they had to show their income and they had to show them their degrees, their college degrees and that. And Christina works in computer graphic arts out of, the home and.
And it also says that there's financing and ownership options. Mass Cultural Council provides resources on financing and ownership activities such as cooperatives that can facilitate artist housing. And while that may not be us directly, it certainly could be an entity where we could partner with someone to provide those resources. There are artist residencies. Mass MoCA's Assets for Artists program offer resources and residency opportunities for artists. So, I mean, it sounds like there are some opportunities there, both in terms of creating the housing as well as potentially getting some either subsidies or some resources to facilitate things. That doesn't require, it doesn't mean that we should not be in favor of seasonal community designation. It just may not be something that we have to do, where we might be able to work it out through zoning and partnering with some entities that might be interested in helping with resources and subsidies.
But to that point, Bruce, I guess I would say when you read through these regulations, I don't see the real downside to accepting the seasonal, because one of the things that it does is it opens the door to financial support. I mean, from the very beginning, there is some financial support.
Yeah.
Exploring housing options, and it's working collaboratively with the state entities, probably in the ones you just mentioned, you know, if we were to identify an artist area, which they're saying is one of their priorities, it doesn't take anything away from the
No,
town.
I didn't say that it should one way or the other.
In terms of the zoning, the planning board still has complete authority over the zoning. This seasonal communities doesn't dictate they have to do really much of anything.
And if you think about, once again, I don't have any specific knowledge of Lowell, but my guess is what that is you've got, is that a rental or the building? Yeah. So going back to the 30% to 80%, depending upon what type of rental aid it is what your income is. And it sounds like maybe it's a zoning overlay, which says this property is only going to be available for artists. So then you take those two things together, you got to make less than 80% and you got to be an artist. So it's that part of the bill. It's an intersection. What we're talking about is, let's say that, you know, you build something at the industrial park and then basically, you know, you've got a suite of people who would be available to live. Some would be market units, but for the subsidized units, you'd be able to say, well, by the way, we want to take some of those subsidized units and reserve them for artists and municipal workers. So it's just, I think, personally, my opinion is all of the above. You know, I think it's like, it's fine. But the big thing here is, if in the example of Lowell, you had to make less than 80%, well, maybe in Stockbridge, if we set it at 1.5 times AMI, you could make up to 120% of AMI. So maybe it's an artist who could be making in the 70s and 80s rather than the 40s or 50s or whatever. And we're still, that sounds like a lot of money, but it's not if you need to get a place to live around here. It's gotten so expensive. You know, it's just food for thought. You know, Christine, what are your thoughts? Do you mind if I put you on the spot?
Sure. I was just thinking about the people wanting to know if the towns have bylaws to do certain things. And just in general, the Attorney General has to approve all zoning bylaws. And she writes up her opinions as to whether or not they will accept whatever kind of an amendment a town makes. And those decisions are all available on her website. It's a really good resource if you're interested in finding out where the state is thinking about bylaws. And it's only towns. Cities do not have to, they have ordinances, and those do not have to be approved. But back when I was working, I was an editor-in-chief of a magazine that reported on these decisions. And so every month we would get all the decisions and then write them up so people had it. But then we moved on. So I think that's one important area. I really think that having more community discussions on how all of the housing programs fit together. And if you could get someone from the state who's working on the regulations to present some of this information to you, and they know how their interpretation would be implemented, which might be helpful. So maybe a community forum before you get too far into thinking about recommendations would be helpful to start building understanding, because I think at this point, that's one of the major issues with seasonal communities. And it's like, well, is this big brother coming down and doing something to us that we're not for sure we want? And certainly with the energy siting regulations, that's one of our major concerns. So I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
I'm going to gently put you on the spot. I think that both of those recommendations are great, but you pay more attention. You know, you're on Berkshire Regional Planning as a delegate. You write the column that I read every time there's a Stockbridge updates. You know a lot about this stuff. You live in such a cute little house. I won't say where you live, right in this, near the center of town, you got to have an opinion on some of this stuff. And I don't care if it differs from mine or the rest of the people on this board or whatever. I would love to actually hear your take on, what we should do, because, you're as informed as anyone I know.
Well, thank you, but I think you make me much more important than I am. Anyway, my opinion is that there are really good things in seasonal communities, and there are some things that I think we need to look at. And I'm not for sure I get the ADUs and seasonal communities mixed up just right now because I don't have my references in front of me. But the whole issue of parking spaces, I know under ADUs, if you're within a half mile of a bus stop, you don't have to provide parking. Well, they have the definition of a bus stop now includes flag stops. So when you think about that, a lot of Stockbridge has flag stops. And
Right,
so
but- But that is ADUs, it's not seasonal communities. We don't believe that actually there's
okay, but
I mean,
that's
yeah.
okay. But those kinds of things.
All right, let me ask you a question. Well, I mean, like, the trade-off on undersized lots, the question of AMI. If you were like the chief cook and bottle washer, the czar of Stockbridge, where would you set, undersized lot sizes and where would you set AMI? If you could go up to 250%, if you could go down to, anywhere from 10 to 90% on lot sizes.
Oh my goodness. I really haven't thought about those specifics. I would have to think about it a little bit to, to really, I think that certainly there are areas where you could reduce lot sizes, for instance, in 2-acre zones, and still have each house on a good sized lot. When you look at the village, as you said, we have these very small lots, 1/4 acres and 1/2 acres. And I think people, when they hear that, oh, we might have just an acre or 3/4 of an acre, they become concerned because they're not visualizing how large that is. So I would
In
also
fact, there's a
consider.
25-acre wetland behind them, it's like kind of like in my house. Yeah, okay. But never, oh, Anita dropped off. She didn't want to be put on the spot, I guess. Oh, sorry, Anita.
Well, that's okay. Love to talk about this stuff because I learn from other people.
And what do you, and so what do you think? You just listen. Any thoughts? No?
I haven't seen.
All right, so nevertheless, we are at a situation where, we could meet a couple times next week over this if you like, but otherwise, we are in a situation where the deadline for comments is October 31st. So, look, and to tell you, the only serious concern I have with seasonal communities, the way the regulations are written, and this is because of my job, is that they've exempted nonprofit ambulance services from the benefits. So, and in Berkshire County, you got Northern Berkshire and Southern Berkshire, which dominate the really rural areas for ambulance service. And our men and women can't take advantage of this. So I'm going to put in a comment. Paul asked the ambulance service and me to work with him on on some comments to try to change that. That's the thrust of the personal comments I'm going to write up.
Is that possible based upon, I think, Paul's,
He's on the committee and he's a
that.
senator. So
He said that the only amendments are within the existing language of the draft regulations, that there will not be any additions.
So they can take out the words municipal and all of a
Yes,
sudden.
okay. That's fine.
One more. I mean, and once again, he's the one who encouraged me to put it.
Okay,
So
fine.
I don't know for sure, but
Fine. I just want to be sure you're not barking up the tree.
it just drives me crazy that, if you work for, like Lee Lennox, Pittsfield, or potentially the future Stockbridge ambulance service, you could benefit from,
But if you work for nothing, because you're working for a volunteer service.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We don't pay as good and we got disadvantages.
$10 a call.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we should include home health workers in it too.
We always felt about sending kids to private school. More you pay, less you get.
All right, besides that, which is my one little thing, that's kind of something I've been focused on. Any other comments? I'm not sure we need to put in comments. I think it's generally pretty good. People like this suite, they like it, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. But I can't think of a thing other than the one I mentioned about the emergency workers that I have a problem with. Is there, can you guys come up with anything? Do you feel like we need to put in comments for these draft regulations, which is?
I have a question. If they do the smaller size lots, that's going to mean that they have to put tiny houses up?
No, that's a whole separate thing.
Okay, that's good. Because
And
I'm
with
really.
tiny houses,
Tiny
there's
houses.
really two questions on tiny houses. Is it on wheels or ain't it on wheels?
Right.
And we already allow tiny houses that are not on wheels. If you want to build a 300 square foot house on your $150,000 lot, you go for it. You still got to put in your septic, you still got to put in your utilities, you still got to put in your water.
I don't
So,
think
yeah.
people understand
Yeah.
how small the 400 square feet is.
I think that.
Well, on the regulations, the way they're written right now, for undersized lots, it doesn't say anything about the size other than it has to adhere to the local zoning requirements for area and square footage and sewer and,
Okay, I didn't get that number then at the last meeting. We talked about 400 square foot.
It's,
Oh, that's
it
the tiny
says,
home, that's not the lot.
Okay.
That's the house itself.
it says that the town
This-
has to allow tiny houses.
Right. We already do.
Right, so Bruce, I already did that.
It's about the size of this room.
They told me this room is 750 square feet,
Well,
which
maybe
is almost two tiny houses.
Yeah, but you can't with a tiny house put in the wall.
This room?
That's what they said.
Including over there, though.
No way.
Maybe.
30
I don't
by
know.
20 maybe.
They said,
It's 18 feet across and it's probably
30?
they
30
said
feet
30
this
by
way.
23 is what they were
30 by
thinking.
23?
As
Okay,
well.
good. So maybe it could be a tiny home duplex. I don't know.
But the
here's thing, though.
regulations don't say anything about requiring tiny homes.
Right.
No, we have to allow them, which we already do.
Okay, and which we already do, so that
Right.
really makes it.
I mean, you want to build a hobbit hole. I don't think there's anything in our zoning that disallows it as long as you follow the code. Nobody builds them because, who wants to live underground. I mean, so I think the economics deal with a lot of those issues. Though I'm a firm believer that if you give, I'm actually we have these morning meetings over at the Waldorf School and where all the kids come in the room. And I'm going to do a poll and say, if you could live in your parents' basement or live in a 400 square foot house that was all yours, including a loft that doesn't count towards the percentage. So you could do 25-foot ceiling, with a loft in the middle of it, and that doesn't count towards the 400 square feet. Which would you prefer? I'm actually going to do that as one of our morning meetings. And I guarantee you that 90% are going to say, I'll take a little house rather than, the parents' basement, but who knows? I think that's kind of, when they go to get married and start a family, it might not work, but, until then.
So I have one comment that I think we might structure something around. I haven't really thought about how to word it, but one of the things in the regulations is that it does require quite a bit of reporting by them.
yes.
And I think
And audits.
and we could have a comment kind of about, for example, it says every 2 years you have to have an updated housing needs assessment.
All right, so give me the
Well-
two words you used. It was reporting and what's the other one?
And
Audit.
And audit.
Audit.
Audits.
and I think we could maybe,
Burdensome for small.
I don't know that we need to do one every other year.
No, no,
Housing
no.
needs assessment, maybe every 5 years you have to do it, and in terms of the reporting, I think you could also have it be kind of biannual instead of every year or what, I mean, it just seems that is a bit of a burden on
Yep.
a
Especially
town.
for small municipalities with a lot of.
Exactly, so I
Sports
think we,
I think there were audit requirements as well for the
Yeah.
trusts, any trusts that form and so on and so forth.
yeah, so, which I
Which
think
is-
we have
which is
anyway.
kind of onerous.
And
we have
and
it-
what is their definition of an audit? And,
But I think we have an audit requirement anyway.
yeah, but we also.
It just adds more things. that they
Adds more
wanna audit.
cost.
They want to
Adds,
audit.
adds
So,
cost and complexity to managing the
yeah.
municipal and trust management. Okay. That's a great idea.
And I think one thing that it would help us to do, and I haven't done this yet, is one of the benefits of the seasonal community is that it opens up funding sources
Yeah.
in terms of the town having a priority over towns that are not seasonal communities. And it doesn't say those funds have to be used on undersized lots or on this or that. So if we were to do something in one of the sites that we might identify that we wanted to do, it might well open up doors for us to
Yeah.
get funding at a priority level.
And that's one of the reasons why I'd love to see a special town meeting, because Paul Mark in that interview he did said he expects only 3 municipalities to have adopted it. This fiscal year for the state ends June 30th. And he's only expecting 3 towns, and there's 2 million in this year's fiscal budget.
Yeah.
For anybody who's adopted seasonal communities, and those 3 towns might be able to split $2 million. I mean, that's like
Nice.
$700,000
Yeah.
that we could kind of put toward,
Yeah. And it doesn't say it's limited to,
Right,
anything.
right. I mean,
Other than,
put them in, Coke's backyard, we could put in some of those tiny homes. Just kidding you. Just kidding.
I'm in the backyard.
Yeah, I'm kidding you. But anyways, I think the point is that, that these were normally really competitive, funding sources. And this year it's not going to be. So, I would love to get a yes or no sooner rather than later for that reason alone, Anybody else have any, Patty?
I was wondering if you could clarify this point that you guys just discussed about the funding that's available for seasonal communities. Because it's my understanding that the seasonal communities designation confers a prioritization layer for the one-stop funding. And the town of Stockbridge already receives that because they're already a rural community.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. In fact, Paul Mark directly said on video that there's $2 million in this fiscal year that is available only to towns that adopt the seasonal communities designation. And he expected it to be, a real windfall for early adopters. I mean, that's what he said, and he knows it better than I know it. I'm just, he did that interview with Carol Owens on Stockbridge Updates that ran last week, and that's what I'm referring to.
right.
And that was my understanding before he said it too, but, I would reach out if you wanted clarification on that to his office, to Casey in his office.
Thanks.
Believe you're right, Patrick,
Yeah.
what I've read, but
Well, it was not, yeah. Okay. Any other though, specific comments, that we want to think about? Okay. All right, so it's mostly around, a burden of making sure the regulations aren't burdensome on small municipalities. All right, as I said, I'll write that up. I can only communicate with 2 of you legally. So does anybody want to volunteer to review what I write up? And if anybody in the public wants to see a copy, just let me know. Okay, Jan? Anyone else want to see it before?
Okay.
Sure.
All right, Jan and Bruce. Okay, we got our 2. All right, that was a very great discussion. Thank you very much. And now we're going to go to the next thing, which is the CPC request for proposals. Okay.
Right.
Now, I have a, we're trying to keep these meetings to an hour. It is Friday afternoon. So I think we can do one of the 2 things. And I think that we should, the CPC deadline is November 15th there. So, do you want to maybe just have a 5 or 10 minute discussion on what Mark's been working on, and maybe another meeting in about 2 weeks to talk about CPC? We still have 20 days to put the proposal together.
Well,
But I'm up to doing it the other way if you prefer.
Just so you know, there's a public meeting about it on October 15th.
Yeah.
So you can go and at least somebody can go.
Thoughts, ideas, yes.
And the closing is November 14th.
Yep.
What kind of issues would a discussion of this CPC funding include? What would we?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, the last 2 years, I wrote something up and, I think I passed it around, and people saw it and whatnot, and I'd be happy to do that again. I don't know if there's anything new or anything that we want to add to what we've done in the past. We don't really have a specific project going at the moment. That's on the front burner, but,
But I think that, I think that not only do we have the baseline things that we could do, I think we can make an argument, one, that we've done a good job. Oh, and I did get too late to the agenda, something from Andrea on a mid-year thing that they want with some of the rotted decks. So I'll have that on the agenda for next time. But to the point, one is this question of, kind of housing focused needs that pop up in the middle of the year. Well, I think we can make a stronger case that now that we've got a couple of years under our belt, that we are a great resource for CPC to be able to deploy their funds mid-year. That's one thing. All right. In fact, we've successfully done that. Two would be, are there initiatives that we want in the general housing space to consider funding, including just the beyond the sort of general build up some money in our piggy bank. And then the third thing I think we might want to consider is conditional funding required. Look at if something were to go to town meeting and then be pulled, the money just stays in CPC. It's not wasted. It's available for deployment next year. But we might want to consider conditional grant requests that, based on what changes in the landscape if we approve seasonal communities versus what our options are if we don't, and perhaps ask for several, it could be specific money for specific types of things that are only allowed under seasonal communities, or it could be money to help us develop an implementation plan around what those priorities are. So we could think about sort of like some conditional things and say, look, if you vote down seasonal communities, Gary, the moderator, pull these two. But if you vote for them, these are kind of how we kind of see going forward with a funding request. So we might want to kind of think kind of creatively about, how we bring, some innovative ideas to them.
Why don't you run that by them on the 15th so that they can say you're going in the right direction or not?
Okay. And that's a great idea. Right.
That's what the purpose of that meeting is, really.
Yeah.
So you two could work on it.
yeah, I mean, we'll,
You want to go on the 15th?
We'll get-
We all can go. It's it's open meeting.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just make sure that's in my calendar. Hold on one second. Calendar.
Liz will be there too, I think.
I'm on the board. I can't represent you.
Sure you can.
No, but
There's no
we'll-
conflict of interest between CPC and town boards. That's a really important distinction between that and other boards. You absolutely can't advocate for anything you want and still be a member of CPC, both of you. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go.
I'll be there.
I mean, I think, kind of, and another thing, but, it's usually if you have a relationship like, you got to recuse yourself, and CPC is the opposite. They want that, actually.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to calendar. 15th. All right, so any other, I don't think that we're ready to, I don't think in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, 7 minutes, we can do that, but I do think we could have a quick discussion on your memo. So is that okay with everyone if we have another meeting around 2 weeks?
Yeah, and we,
Talk about
I
CPC?
mean, last year's, obviously the Glendale Middle project was front and center, and so that was a big part of what we wrote up.
This is Wednesday night. I actually have a board meeting for the ambulance where I'm presenting the budget, so I cannot attend. What time is the CPC meeting? Do we know?
Oh, it's either 4:30 or 6. You'll have to look it up online.
I think it's at 4:30. I don't have my phone
Yeah, I
with me.
think it is too. We were trying to be.
I think the CPC.
Oh, my other meeting's at 6. I could come for half an hour.
Yeah.
6.
It's 6 o'clock?
At 6.
All right, so someone else, so maybe you could log in, or it'd be great if somebody went and asked some of these questions, but I'm not going to be able to be there. I have to do my job.
I try to get paid to be there in person, so maybe Mark, can you?
Yeah, I think so. What day of the week is it?
I mean, I
It's
can.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 15th.
I can be there online, but I
Yeah.
can be there.
I mean, feel free to, yeah.
Yeah, I can go. I may want to just consult.
Yeah, sure,
Other
just call me.
questions a little bit more.
Call.
but- Okay. All right.
I
I'll be there.
appreciate the help. Okay, so let's spend, it's now 5:25. You want to give us some thoughts, Mark, for 5 minutes?
5 minutes. All right. So we've discussed having our own website. I did make up a little mock-up of something, just, kind of a little cartoon to look at, but the main thing is, and I patterned this after, to a large degree, after the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust website. They've had it for some time, and I talked to Fred Clark about it today. He's their chair, and he said it's been great. That's been a really useful tool for them. Fortunately for them, they have a guy who's a retired magazine layout expert, and he's built the site and keeps it going. So he had these in-house skills, which, I mean, you've done a lot of web work, and I've built a couple of websites. So, I mean, we could do it without spending a lot of money. But the categories that I have, and this is just, I just put this out there. We're open to any others that you want. I have a homepage that you go click on homepage, takes you back to the home, an about section with the purpose of the housing trust, who the members are, information on meetings. The Great Barrington one will have a list of past meetings along with their minutes, the agendas, links to the recordings. So it's a real good resource page. A section on your programs, active projects that we're working on, and also programs such as the rental or down payment assistance or home improvement grants, things that we've talked about. There'd be maybe instructions on how to pursue those if people were looking for information, maybe even a link to the applications. A news section with commentary from anybody on the committee who wants to say something, links to local news articles about housing in Stockbridge and the Berkshires, or other housing reports relevant to Stockbridge. It might be a Boston Globe piece on affordable housing. Resources, again, the Great Barrington site has links to a number of different housing organizations, and then contact information on how to reach us with questions or comments, ideas. That needs to be monitored, and you got to respond to people in a timely way. So there's some activity involved with staying with this. It isn't just putting something up and saying, isn't that nice? A lot of work needs to be done to keep it going and keep it fresh. But it is a good way for us to inform the community, to build a constituency for our work, to get feedback from people and to respond to people, so we can do more to let people know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and when they can come and participate. So again, open to other links that you could put in, but that covers a lot of the ground. One issue that we would have is that there's some expense involved in signing up to, say, do something through GoDaddy or some other Wix.
$100 a year, it's not much.
Yeah, okay. But then I know when I had a couple of GoDaddy sites, they started charging more for the hosting fee.
Yeah, the hosting is around $250 a year, if that. You need a secure certificate, so it's HTTPS, it's $49.
Yeah,
And then the rest of it is just kind of, the most expensive is whether you get a volunteer or you have to pay.
right. Well, for the minimal expenses, it's several $100s. And we do have one issue, is that we don't really have a fund that's free of the CPC money. So we can't write a check that easily unless the town has a way to
I'm
assist.
sure we could find one or several donors, including, but $50, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If that's what it comes down to.
All right, we could bootstrap it. The URLs, if that's the right name for it, is a couple of are available. One is stockbridgeaht.org. One is stockbridgehousing.org. Those are both available. And Great Barrington uses GB Housing, so they don't get into the complications of Affordable Housing Trust. So those would be pretty easy to secure. And
Yeah, I would certainly not favor an acronym that would need an explanation.
yeah, we know what it is, but the public.
Right. So I think Stockbridge Housing.
We don't want to be confused though with the Stockbridge Housing Authority, which runs the report. So we'd have to kind of figure that one out. But yeah.
Okay, so we're going to play with the name,
Yeah.
but luckily we aren't competing with Stockbridge, Georgia for,
Can you check to see if Mark's Place is available?
Anyway, I'd be happy to help set the thing up and do some of the writing and get it
Yeah,
going.
I think that's great.
Great.
So it might, maybe I could do a further mock-up and a little bit more, develop the thing a little further and get some reaction.
Is it your thinking that under the resource section and whatnot that you have in there, that we might solicit ideas from members of the community about areas that we could pursue, potential property sites and building? I think that there may be people out there other than Liz that lives it, that have ideas about, what they're planning on doing with their own property, or somebody that, has inherited something from parents and the parents are no longer with us and they don't want the property, and maybe they'd be, and I just wonder if we could have something in there that would, some little section that would solicit that kind of information to facilitate things.
Yeah, a big part of this would be to hear from people, let them know what we're doing, but then what do they think? What are their ideas? And maybe it's a matter of coming up with the right name of the icon to click on.
Yeah, I think that websites like inbound communication, some people have to go find it. And I think that's great. That's an informational resource. I think that's great if we make the more interactive we make things like surveys and ways to participate. I think we also want to focus on kind of both outbound communication in addition to that. And that might be a pamphlet on what we're doing. It can't be political, but it could be an explanation of what our initiatives are and where there's affordable housing in town that we could hand out, for example, at town meeting. And then the second thing I would just point out is that in addition to one of the most important parts about outbound communication is if we decide we want to fundraise as an organization, so that we could solicit donations that would be independent of some of the CPC restrictions. Obviously, it's not to use them for a housing purpose, but that would be able to pay for things like your website or land purchase or whatever. So, surveys of where people stand, surveys of available land and other kind of suggestions, whether we want to do a fundraising component, and the question of a more outbound, hand out a pamphlet or send an email versus inbound, which would be like a website that people would come and visit. I think that those are the sorts of things we'll talk some more about.
One last point. I talked to Fred Clark about the finances of it, and he said, because they get CPC money, obviously in Great Barrington, but the town has also just given them funds that are free and clear.
Right.
But beyond that, he said that they have decided that the Airbnb registration fees that people pay for in Great Barrington, but that money is diverted into the account of the Affordable Housing Trust. He said it's about 25,000 a year.
I love that idea.
Yeah. So that would be funds that you could spend on things like the website or other projects that weren't.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
That and all the building inspector fees. All the fees. You get all of the fees.
We could have our meetings in Florida during the winter.
No, we can't.
No.
We can't do that. Yeah, we're
We need a date for the next meeting?
yes.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do Fridays, we heard. So we're thinking about, how about Wednesday, the 22nd for everyone? Coach Day off this Wednesday, if you don't mind me saying. Free. Does anyone else have a problem with Wednesday, the 22nd?
I won't even be in the country. I'm gone.
Well, Zoom works from everywhere.
I don't think I have internet.
Liz Logan,
Sounds like a good
on
trip.
the fly,
I'll probably be.
flying from, well, that's only if you're flying from Boston. So you're not going to be here, so it doesn't matter. How about the rest of you? Wednesday, the 22nd, 4:30?
Sounds
I
like.
can do that
It's
online.
okay.
So we're going to do affordable housing. Yeah, that's fine. With all the extra money we can send a limo to get you.
No,
Just kidding. It's a joke. Joke, everyone.
I will be here on the 23rd,
AHT.
Thursday, if you want.
You want to do it on Thursday instead?
Yeah. that
That's
works.
good.
Well, can you is it possible to get the room?
Well, today is the
10th.
10.
that's the fourth Thursday, so I don't believe there'll be a select board meeting, but Liz, you usually, everybody can do Wednesday, and you can additionally do Thursday. So Liz, can you confirm with Terry that Thursday, the 23rd is available? And if it's not, set the meeting for the 22nd.
Yeah.
It
That-
looks, right now, it looks like it's available.
All right, so let's just plan Thursday, 23rd then.
Okay.
Okay, Thursday,
So we're
23rd.
doing Thursday now?
You're here.
Yeah, because that way we can see,
Good.
you know.
That's the day before my birthday.
All right.
Oh,
Just so you
Might have
know.
to have a party.
Party hats and cupcakes.
Thursday, 23rd.
Oh, I have to miss that one? Oh,
Although I'm not disclosing. all of it.
That Wednesday is your day off and it's just a Zoom. versus-
Oh, yeah, I know
It's Thursday.
I don't mind at all. I just don't, Friday's the end of the week and I don't want to be sitting here at 4:30 on Friday.
I get it, I get it. I
I
get it.
know, I'm in crunch.
I'm not the only one.
All right, so everybody, thank you so much. I thought that was a great meeting. Any other public comments before we close?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, third, fourth,
Who
fifth.
did it? Who did it? Wait. Jan, who did the second?
Thanks.
Jan seconded.
I'll second it.
All right. Coke seconds.
All those in favor saying aye, yay.
Aye.
Second,
Aye,
I Liz.
Bruce, aye.
All right.